Hey friends, welcome to this video on how to use Adobe Lightroom for Art131 for our darkroom class during our alternative classroom. So before we start, I want to talk about organizing your files. So this is something that's going to be really important, especially when you're using Adobe Lightroom, which if you haven't downloaded it, please pause the video, download it. Instructions are in Canvas on how to use it. To use your Maricopa ID to download it. So once you have it downloaded, you only need Adobe Lightroom. We're not downloading Photoshop or you're not using Photoshop or InDesign or anything else. But you're more than welcome to play with those programs on your own if you have never done so. So once you have your images, I would say organize them on your desktop, or if you have a portable hard drive that's really convenient, I use one. And I really keep things nested within folders, as you can see in these breadcrumbs down here. I have my hard drive, teaching, Art131, which is our class, demo, Lightroom, and I organize things by date. So I always just kind of put a dump of files. I just put a sample set here, which we're going to use. So take a moment to make sure all your files are in one folder. If you did not shoot camera raw, that's fine. If you use JPEGs, that's okay. If you use your phone, if you use a combination of phone, digital camera, scanner, whatever, that's fine. So once you have all your files organized, again, it doesn't have to be in any sort of, I would just nest them into folders. You're going to open Adobe Lightroom. I'm using Adobe Lightroom Classic. Keeps doing that. So hit OK and repair to continue. I think it's a bug. So once my Lightroom opens, it actually opens to what I was working on previously, which was looking at some of our girls' rock photos from last year's camp. And I'm going to create a new catalog. We're going to do that before we kind of get an understanding of what everything is. So a catalog is sort of organizing all of your files organized. It's important to keep everything in your folders and keep them there, the originals, just like you keep your film in your negative binder, so you always knows where it is. What Adobe Lightroom does is it uses this path, these breadcrumbs, to figure out where these files are. It links to them to find them when you use your catalog. So it's very important you keep organized and you keep your originals always in the same place. Just like you keep your negatives always in the same binder where you always know where they are. And you can even write on your negative sheets which project it's for or whatever. I like to organize by date that I upload, so I know what day I upload. I have an idea of what I shot, and it kind of keeps things organized, and it gives me a unique folder ID instead of being like wedding or, camp. Keep things by folder, by date. It's really convenient. So what I'm going to do is go to File, New Catalog. And it's going to probably the last time I shot. And I've created a new catalog. So I'm going to go to Teaching, Art131, Demo, Lightroom. And I'm just trying to figure out where these files are, because it's going to save a catalog file within there. And I might save this as and you can use a new catalog for every time you shoot. It could be everything you have ever shot is in one catalog. I like to break them up in different shoots. So I will have ones for example, when I shoot for Girls Rock, it's all one catalog because it's all my one images. If I shoot for my art, I kind of separate it up by different projects I've worked on. And I'll hit create. So what it's doing is going to close this catalog, and it's going to relaunch Adobe Lightroom. And it's a .ir cat file or LR cat for Lightroom catalog. And you're going to have a screen like this. This is sort of, this is our digital darkroom. So the first thing we're going to do is get our negatives in, our digital negatives, our files, our raw files. So we're going to File, Import Photos and Videos. And I have a lot, so it's going to pull a whole bunch in. So and I'm using left to kind of find some real old images. 2016, 2015. This is why you keep organized. Click here, I have a sample set of images. Import everything, even your bad stuff, because you never know what it's going to turn out. That's why I always say look at your negatives and even print your bad negatives. So just take everything you shot. Again, I have a small sample just because I didn't want to overwhelm you all, but definitely take all of your negatives. I'm going to repeat that again. And you're going to click this import to the right. It's going to import all of your images into your catalog. This is kind of like taking all of your film, processing it, and putting it into your negative sheet. So we're in our negative sheets. And we have a couple things we're going to kind of quickly go over. So right down here is our list of our negatives. Right down here. And if your window doesn't look like this, just go to Window, Library, because we're in the Library tab. So I have my negatives down here. So this is sort of like your negative sheet, or even your contact sheet. This could also be considered your contact sheet. To your left, you can kind of get a preview of each image. Kind of get some catalog information for the folders, where the collection is and stuff, import and export. So we can kind of look at that later. To the right is sort of your quick darkroom things. So here we have a histogram. And we're not going to get too in-depth what histograms are, but this is sort of your lights to darks. So this file may not have that many black values because there's not much there. Shadows, midtones, highlights, and whites. So you can see all the values are kind of stacked up. So this is a little to the left, this image. It doesn't appear that. It seems like it's a very dark image, but a lot of these information is right there. You can also get the file name, folder, some metadata, camera shot in, dimensions, exposure, focal length of my lens, ISO. So if you ever like, hey, what ISO did I shoot? Your camera actually tells you instead of having to remember the film or trying to read on the tail end of your film. So we have our images down here. And we're not going to get too in-depth into what Lightroom does. We're not really a Lightroom class. We're just kind of using it as a substitute for what we're doing in the darkroom. So we're going to click this Develop tab. And let's say I have this image I want to work on. Alright, it's in color. We got to make it into black and white. That's the first thing we want to do. So over here on your right, under where it says basic, it says color and it says black and white. We're just going to click black and white. We're automatically just going to take it there. This is the first thing we're going to do. Take every one of your images to black and white before you start processing. We're not going to deal with color processing. We're only going to take things into black and white. So this right here is your white balance. These are your color tones. So if I go back to color, I can make it more yellow, more blue, more magenta, more green. But I could use these to get that white balance to get rid of any color casts and correct it. But we're not focusing on that. We're just going to go to black and white. If you move these dials, you can actually see it does make a change on how color's perceived, but we're going to leave it as shot because we're going to use some of our other tools. So the first one we have is the exposure. So think about how long it is exposed in the darkroom. So if it's not a lot of time, kind of looks like this. So a lot of time, it looks like this. Alright, so we want to kind of get full range, darks and lights, best we can. Okay, so I feel kind of good. I got some blacks there. I can even zoom in. And I do see detail pulled up. So I want rich blacks. And I can even cheat and see here if there's data here. That means I have blacks. I have my shadows, exposure, which is my midtones, highlights, and whites. So I can even kind of cheat to see if I actually do have blacks or if I have whites. Contrast here, kind of helping us with our filters. So you can see how much contrast. So think of your filters. You can have no contrast to give it that flat look. A lot of contrast. Kind of gives that crunchy look. So I really want you to think about what would be the best for this image. I think this was taken on kind of an overcast day. So if I actually click here, these Y's, this is sort of before and after. This is the original and this is where it's at now. You can see it's kind of a muddy image. There's not a lot of contrast. The light was, it was kind of hazy because it was the Smoky Mountains. It was rainy. It wasn't really the best day. But that's okay because we can always edit things in post. So I think I'm going to go with a little bit more contrast. I don't want it to be this crunchiness because I don't want to lose those midtones. So I might kind of step it back here. And we can kind of do more in depth right here on the right. So let's say I really want these highlights to kind of come in, but I kind of don't want any highlights. So if I go all the way to the right, I lose detail in the sky. If I go to the left, I get some of those clouds in. So I kind of want to get some of those clouds in. Shadows, I can really pull in, give it this dark, ominous look. But if I do that, I may actually compensate and give me more of those highlights. And these are just the whites. So I can just take the whites and I can pull them all the way over here. Really blows out, again, adds to that high contrast. I want to get some whites in. And blacks. I don't know if I want these rich, I mean I do want rich blacks. I want to see some separation. So I've done all of these things. So to start off, we took it to black and white. We kept our white balance color correction as shot. We adjusted the exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. You can add some texture, but I usually just leave texture as 0. You can actually type numbers in. I usually add a little bit of clarity, and dehazing kind of gives you an idea of take it all the way to the left, take it all the way to the right. I always say take everything to the extreme to see if you really like it. Take it up a little. So I'm going to press these Y's real quick, and as you can see, this image, I may not have really liked it at first, but now since I've done some post-processing, I've added some texture, some mood, some emotion. Really played with it. There's a lot more we can play with, but we're not going to play with it now. We want to keep it really simple. And yeah, so let's do another image. Alright, so I've got this gentleman. So the first thing I actually want to do, which is a little bit more in depth, is took this on a slant. As you can see, nothing's kind of aligned right. It's kind of tilted to the right. So what you do up here, you have these tools. We're going to click this one. And I'm just going to, you can use it to kind of tilt or crop. I like to keep my crop as is. I don't like to crop my images too much. But then I can straighten it. And you can click done here. And now it's nice and straight. So I go to here. Doesn't really save the original, which is fine. So I'm going to take the black and white. So we have this sign that's kind of overpowering him. Alright, so the first I'm going to do is exposure. I'm going to kind of lighten overall. Contrast. I think I'm going to take the contrast back a little and then work with these for my contrast. Now, since this is the brightest part of the image, my eye is going to this bar sign. So I want to see what I can do. Kind of neutralize it. Now I want to keep the highlights on him. So there is this tool right here, this paintbrush. This is sort of like you're dodging and burning. And I'm just going to paint over this man, and his arms, and his top. And I'm not really being super exact, just kind of being loosey-goosey. Alright. So I want to, if I go too much, kind of get that ghost image. So we want to be a little subtle about this. And this is sort of really direct, targeted processing. Again, we've got some ghosting because we kind of took it up too much. I want all that attention to be on him, but not quite that bar sign. And I can hit done and take my overall edits. I actually might go back to this brush to where this bar sign is and actually try to take that bar sign down a little. Again, we're not being super exact. And I could try to do this whole window. So you can really focus on him. Again, you can kind of see some of that ghosting, but we're just kind of going quick and dirty. You can definitely take your time on it. Alright. So if I do this, you can see originally what it came to and what it is now. So what I'm going to take is how do I save these both images. So I'm going to hold down the Command or Control key and select both. As you can see, they're both highlighted down here. We're going to go to File, Export, and you're going to give them this option. So export to the same folder as the original folder. I like to do that and put in subfolder processed. So everything in that folder will be processed. You can rename here, which is pretty cool. I might go to, I like to rename that separately, to be honest. Image format, we're going to save as JPEG. Keep your quality at 100. Resolution, always try to do 300. And hit export. And over here in the corner, you can export 2 files. Now you're supposed to have more for the project, but we just wanted to go over 2 very quickly so you guys can kind of get some idea. Again, this is very basic Adobe Lightroom stuff. We're not getting too in-depth. Maybe we'll do additional videos to kind of get more in-depth, but we want to keep this as much like the darkroom as possible. We don't want to keep it too complicated. Keep those darkroom principles as well. So you can see my files are exporting. Just wait till it's all done. And while it's no longer there, I can go to Finder. Let's actually close out of Lightroom. Yes, I want to quit. If I go to Process, I have my 2 images here. Awesome. I can rename to File Format Specifications. I forgot what we decided to name them, but there is information on how to rename them. And let's say, I look at this and I'm like, I don't love it. I can go to this LR cat file and just reopen it. And Lightroom's going to save all of that work. So if you ever go back to the darkroom and want to rework on a print, it's sometimes like, I really can't because, did all that work and it's a different darkroom, someone's in the enlarger, I have to start off. And let's say I say, this right here, kind of too hazy. So I can go back to this. I'm just going to restart. You can always restart. You can go back. And get all that information. And sometimes it might be good to restart. Or you can do Command-C to kind of go back and see if maybe I can kind of bring that detail in. That's why you always want to take your time. So definitely spend some time playing around in Lightroom. I might send you some additional tutorials as well. But if you have any questions, you can always reach out, and hope you have time and fun playing around in Adobe Lightroom. Hope you guys have a great day.